everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I'm making sure this is recording because I wasn't sure. I am here to just kind of do an intro quick video to hashtag Into the Wildwoods. So today is November 2nd, and we started Into the Wildwoods yesterday on November 1st. And if you are not following along with that and want to, head over to my Instagram, which is The Truth and Story, or you can go to my Facebook page, which is The Truth and Story. And there's some information there. There is an initial spread that you can do just to get things started, and there's an image with the spread on there. And you can post your picture on Instagram and hashtag it Into the Wildwoods. You can post it in the Facebook group, which there's a link to on my Facebook page. So for all of this sort of information about Into the Wildwoods, my Instagram and Facebook page are the best place to do that. We do have a Facebook group for Into the Wildwoods so that people can share their draws, their daily draws, and just chit chat about things in general. This month, as we're going through the month about Into the Wildwoods. So the question is why? Why are we having a month of November of Into the Wildwoods, right? Well, it started because of this. So one of my favorite decks is the Wildwood Tarot. I have had this for quite some time now, a good few years, I guess. I use it all of the time, but I use it more for intention setting. So if I am setting intentions, if I am focusing on specific type of energy or something of that nature, then I am generally using the Wildwood Tarot. So I love this deck. It is not... It's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. It has its own system. It is obviously based on the Wildwood. It is obviously, not so obviously, but it is also really heavily based on the Wheel of the Year and the changing, right, of the seasons, and being in tune with those changing seasons. And so, so I have this deck, as many people do. It's not an expensive deck set. I think on US Amazon, they're about $14 or so for the guidebook and the deck set, which we'll look at again. We'll look at in a second. Well, the creators of this deck, which is Mark Ryan and John Matthews, wrote a companion book to go with it, which is called Wild Magic, the Wildwood Tarot Workbook. Now, some people have been a little bit like, oh, it's not really a workbook. It has a lot of essays and articles, but what I love about it is that it goes into the archetypes surrounding each one of the major arcana. There's also information about the court cards there, and then there are lots of information about the shamanic path. There's information about or a lot more spreads. So we have a spread here. Here's a spread, the Eye of the White Horse spread. Here is the Chambered Tomb spread. Here is the Readings and Pathway spread, the Well at World's End spread, Archer spread, the Wisdom of the Season spread, the Fate and Destiny and Free Will spread. There's quite a few spreads, and then some lore surrounding the court cards. So there's a lot more information here adding on to the guidebook. I think is really fantastic. And so of course when I heard that this was coming out, I was so excited. And we have to do a Wildwood kind of month challenge for the Wildwood. And so October was already Embrace the Magical, so let's do Into the Wildwoods in November, and that's how it started. It's kind of morphed from there. This is not just about Into the Wildwoods, right? It's not just about that, or it's not just about the Wildwood, but it has morphed into that mindset of Into the Wildwoods. And what does that mean to us? See, the Wildwoods to me means maybe different things than other people, but it's always had, from when I was very young, I had that concept that understanding of the wildness of the other, right, of the other places. It's always where magic happens, right? When the fool goes off on his journey, he doesn't just stay at home. He enters into the woods, right? That's where Goldilocks and the three stumbles on the house, right? The three bears house. That's where Hansel and Gretel stumble on the cannibal witch's cottage. So many things mystical and magical and scary and wondrous happen in the wild woods. So that sort of overarching archetype of the wild woods is prevalent in all of our lore. Take it even into Star Wars when you have Luke going kind of off into the woods and into the bowels of the tree where he, does the phantom fight with ends up, I think, being himself, right? But that takes place in the woodsy, swampy woods of the planet that he's on. But so that just permeates our culture and permeates the old stories and the old lores, the understanding or the magic and the mystical and the scariness also of the darkness and the light areas of the wild woods, where you can be in the dark of the forest and you can kind of break through into a beautiful magical glen, right? So that kind of energy of that is what we're celebrating this month. And so again, I'm kind of doing it 1 week at a time, and there is already a post up on Instagram or on Facebook that has the opening spread, which is not from the book. It's just a spread that I made up. And then there are the rest of the days are keywords for the first 7 days. So today's keyword is wildness, and people say, okay, what do we do with these single word keywords? If you do Instagram challenges, sometimes they have questions, right? Every day there's a question or a phrase. A lot of times they just have keywords, and I personally, the reason mine always have keywords is because that's what I particularly like to do when I do challenges, because it really leaves it open. Sometimes people will take a picture that represents that to them. We had a lot of that in Embrace the Magical, and it was wonderful. I love to see those. I do a little bit of mix of both. Sometimes it's an image. So for wildness, you might have a picture of a tangle of woods in a wild forest, right? You may have a beautiful picture of a wolf that represents wildness to you. It can be just representative. What does that word pull up and cause you to respond to? Then the other thing that you can do is pull a card, right? So you can take from a deck that, and again, you don't have to have the Wildwood Tarot. I need to retrim mine. I actually started to trim it all the way off and write information on it. I really wasn't happy with how it was. I used to have it just trimmed where these were left. So I have to retrim this, my beautiful deck, but that's okay. You can use any deck that speaks to the wild wood. I've got some decks here we're going to talk about in a minute that for me speak to fall and speak to the woods and animals and nature, right? So I would say probably a nature-based deck is going to work for you, but any deck that you have can be used. I've seen people using Druidcraft. I've seen people using the Wild Unknown. I've seen people using the Wildwood. Those are the big ones that I've seen for this, at least for yesterday, which was just the first day, right? So then what you can do is take whatever deck you want. If you have the only deck you have is the Rider-Waite-Smith, use the Rider-Waite-Smith to traipse into the wildwood. Here we go. We have one that actually flipped over, so I'm going to take this one as my message. And so here we have the Four of Bows, which is celebration. So the bows in this deck are the wands. And so, and this deck does have keywords. It's not Rider-Waite-Smith. Some of it is reminiscent of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but not all of them. It is its own system. And so here we have that sense of celebration. And there is a wildness to the celebration. I mean, look at this. There is fire here, right? There's a huge, sweeping up fire over here. And we have just a ton of energy there that almost look as if they are dancing within the flames itself. So there is a sense of wildness and a sense of abandonment to this particular celebratory card in the Four of Wands. So that idea of sometimes that giving into the wild, right? Sometimes going into the middle of the woods and dancing by firelight, that is a wonderful message that says, especially for me. So I'm a very Libra-minded person. So even in my creativity, my brain is always at work and my brain is always functioning, and sometimes, right, this message, when I combine this card with the keyword wildness for today, then a message for me is that sometimes just let loose and dance, right? Sometimes, which I do, I'm crazy about that at times, but sometimes I need that reminder that says, okay, get up and out of your head. I'm doing some more serious, like healing, kind of grief worky kind of stuff. Yesterday and today is the last day of the All Hallows Tide, which is dealing with your ancestors and those who have passed on. And so this is that kind of reminder that says to end that, maybe that time period for me in a period of celebration, and it's okay to give over to that energy. That's a good thing, right? To dance on the wild side. Now we don't want to stay there forever, but we do want to take time to just kind of let loose, cut loose, right? Let your hair down, take your shoes off, build up that bonfire and dance. So when I combine that with wildness, that's going to be my card for message for today. That's another way that you can use the keywords, is to draw a card and say, okay, you almost use it as a position, right, in a spread. So if this card showed up in that position in a spread, what would those two things mean together? And that's how you might address. I know there's been questions about, what do you do with these single word, keywords on these types of challenges? I do apologize. The focus is going in and out because I'm moving around. And see that it does. I think I can turn it off, but I'm not going to redo in order to turn it off. Let me see. White balance. I guess not. Focus. Oh, there we go. I'm going to turn that off, so we'll see if that works. But I'm not going to start over. I do apologize if it's been, I've seen it in the corner of my eye. I've seen it do that. So this is my card for the day. So I'm going to set that aside so I can take a picture of it for Instagram. So that's how you can approach it. Again, if you go to Instagram or Facebook, you'll see an image that has the spread, that says the first 7 days, which the first one is the opening spread, which is on there. There's an image for that. And then there are 6 more keywords. And then I'm going to release the next 7 days. There will be another spread with then 6 more keywords. And again, so going through November. That's how I'm going to be approaching that. We'll just look at a couple more of these. I love the court cards. Now this is a deck that was based off of an older deck called the Greenwood Tarot, and that was very similar. It's a different style of artwork because it's a different artist. This is by the wonderful Will Worthington, who I adore. I feel like this is very strange. One of the things that I actually like about the Wildwood over the Greenwood is the fact that the court cards, I feel like they spent some time with the court cards and really solidified those into being just A, stunning in terms of artwork, and B, I love the woodward, and B, just more concise within their suits, and they are just beautiful. Look at that. I love the King of Stones in this deck. So all of the courts in this deck are animals. So it's just a beautiful, 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 beautiful deck. Again, you don't need this to participate, but we are going to be also in the course of the next however many days are in. I love this one as well. However many days are in November. Look at the world tree. I will be using this as well as other decks to go through the archetypes of the major arcana, as well as hopefully talking a little bit about the suits just in terms of their elements. So that's kind of the plan. There should be a few, hopefully shorter video, quite a few, because I intend to do one on each archetype, although I may combine the Emperor and the Empress together, and the High Priestess and the Hierophant, if they make sense to do so. So we'll see as things come. So that's the Wildwood. The other decks that I consider, I didn't shift this one over here. So I went through and I put away my Halloween style Samhain decks to really fully embrace the Into the Wild Woods. And I pulled out things that for me are fall, autumny, still very much feeling like autumn and fall, and then also kind of with the idea of Into the Woods. And I certainly think that the Druidcraft does a beautiful job. There's obviously a little bit more about civilized society versus, but you still get that element of, but you get more like this style dress. So they're definitely much more in the villages than out in the caves and the caverns, so to speak. A lot more knights and things of that nature. So it's a little not fully into the woods. They're living on the edge of the woods. Is how I feel. I do love this Fool. But this is a beautiful one. It has a beautiful woodsy, earthy tone to it, autumny tone to it. So it does feel very much like autumn. Now, I use this deck all year long. It's one of it's one of my workhorse decks, but it definitely has an earthy, woodsy feel to it. The Tarot of the Trees is all trees, so of course that feels like woodsy as well. I of course had to get out the Fairy Tale Lenormand, and I know I have my super comfy baggy raggedy shirt on because it's a cold autumn day, and I just enjoy it, and I didn't change because I've just been lounging. But it's okay. I had to bring out the Fairy Tale Lenormand because, again, it's that idea of going into the woods, right? Now, of course, these are all red, the same as if they were any other Lenormand deck. But just visually, I mean, it's the fairy tale. It's going into the wild woods here. It's the ring. Get some other ones. The dogs in the woods, the cobras in the woods. I love that we have the, it has Grimoire, but it has Grimm as in the Grimm's fairy tales. So a lot of the fairy tales are going off into the wild woods. I love the Sleeping Beauty going into the woods. We've got, oh, not Sleeping Beauty, Snow White goes into the woods and finds the dwarfs to help and hide her. So many stories take place in the wild woods. So I of course had to have that one out. What else do I have? Some of them just feel like fall to me. So I like the Earthbound Oracle is all woodsy and earthy. I have the Wisdom of the Trees. I have, of course, Tarot of the Hidden Realms. Let's talk about that one real quick because that's another really good one to use if that's a deck that you have and you don't have the Wildwood, because this is all about the wood, right? This is all about the she. This is all about the fae energy here. And it is just a stunning deck. It's one of my favorites. Does not mess around. The Ten of Swords. She's like... but it's just gorgeous. Gorgeous color. It looks like fall again. I use this deck all year long, but this is very much strong, powerful, beautiful fae energy. That is, look at that. That is gorgeous. This is another one that would be really beautiful to work with. For it going into the wild woods. Being careful. Be careful in the wild wood. Oh, love this. One of my favorite moon cards. Look at that. She's like down on the ground finding her path. Love it. Love it. I love everything about this deck. It's well worn. It's probably one of my most worn decks. I've had it for a long time. I've used it. It's just in this little random box because I needed a box. Enjoy the little things. $2.99. I saw it at TJ Maxx and thought, oh, I've got something I can stick in there. And so I did that. I've got the Shaman's Oracle. I have the Animal Runes. I'm going to go through some of these. I have my Llewellyn, original Llewellyn. I have the Hesychos. Of course, that's a wonderful one as well. Because again, you're looking, this one's lovely because you're looking at sort of the high fae in the major arcana and the quartz. And then you're looking at sort of the small fae, forest fae as well in the minor. So there is a lot of whimsy to it, but it's actually a very serious reader as well. I've had really powerful readings with it, but you have much more of the high fae in the quartz and the majors, and then much more of like gnomes and sprites and things. I'm trying to get a good example. Whimsical gnomes and sprites and things in the minor arcana. So that's a really wonderful one that feels very into the woods. So yeah, so I've just kind of pulled out everything that felt like, oh wait, we have to talk about this. There's no question that the Rackham Oracle had to come out. Because again, most of our tales, our fairy tales take place in the forest. And so this one, of course, these are illustrations of Arthur Rackham, and most of them were in fairy tale books. And so there is just an absolutely stunning. I have walkthroughs, I think, on everything that I've shown you so far. But I mean, look at that. This one to me is like so embodies the idea of the story into the wild woods. I mean, look at that. This is not the best camera. Look at the courage card. It's like a fool. It's got the energy of the fool. It's just a stunning deck that is all about sort of being in the midst of fae and fairy tale and story and at the liminal spaces of the woods. So yes, I could not. So that's what I did. I went through, put away sort of my decks that felt like Halloween and Samhain, and just pulled out anything that in some way felt to me earthy and woodsy and fae and fairy tale, those kinds of energies to the cards themselves. I also found one other thing, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I'm trying to keep these to be shortish. But because it's all about animals, right? Right now, for me, the woods is all, there's animals in the woods. I found these at Books A Million for $1.97 a piece, and they're National Geographic picture playing cards. Not great card stock. It's, I mean, similar to many of the Oracle cards. But there is a Amazing Animals, Brilliant Birds, Spectacular Sea Life, and then Extraordinary Earth. Now, from the Extraordinary Earth, I only took 5 to represent the 5 elements, with spirit being one. And then I pulled, there were multiple, sometimes multiple tigers, sometimes multiple monkeys, multiple flamingos. There were multiple, sometimes there was a polar bear in one, but also a polar bear in the water. There were multiple seals and sea lions, fish galore that I don't, want to pull an energy for every single kind of fish. Or I wouldn't know what to do with those in terms of a reading. But I thought, how wonderful of an animal totem energy deck is that, to have real amazing photographs of these amazing animals, right? Now the backs aren't anything to write home about. They are just black and National Geographic. I'm going to blacken the edges, of course. You could, black this out, or you could do Miss Veronica Jude's putting laminate, but these are so thick as it is, they would become extremely thick. So I ended up taking those, basically 3 of the decks and then just 5 cards. But 3 of the decks I took down to about, I think I have about 83 cards here. And they're so beautiful, but for animal energy, to have the beautiful images. So I use, this is the Aurora Borealis, because that to me is spirit. Like if there is an image of source and spirit, those sort of aurora lights that take place to me, or a galaxy, image of a galaxy, speak to that. So I have that for spirit. I have just this beautiful canyon picture for earth. I have this gorgeous waterfall for water, and a volcano for fire. And then I took this lightning for air, just because it takes place in the air. It just spoke to me of air. So those are my 5 element cards. And then the rest, now this doesn't actually have a spider in it, but I needed a spider, it's just a spider web, but I'm using that sort of for spider energy. And you can just see these are actual, National Geographic photographs of fox energy, chameleon energy. There's a warthog. There's a polar bear. I mean, look at these. There's monkey energy, koala, sloth. I mean, look at this beautiful earth. I mean, seriously, the animals and the abundance of beauty and energy. Look at that moose. Is, I just think, amazing. Those are baby armadillos. Bison, tree frog energy, just frog energy there. Deer. Look at the wolf. I wish there was a raven. We have a snake, meerkat. Somebody was asking on one of the channels about whether or not there was any animal decks that had meerkats in them. So you can see these are actual playing cards, but camel. I have several books of totem animal energy that you can just look up. Okay, what is the energy of an iguana? If you just do some research on the animals, it's not real difficult to pick out what those might be. These are quite thick. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Here we have a beautiful tortoise. So I'm not going to go through them all, but we have, I just thought that was absolutely amazing way to have quite a large animal deck. I have, animal decks tend to be around 40 cards or so, and this has like 83 of them. So I think it's awesome. I need to give it a real good on the floor shuffle, because they're definitely clumping a little bit in there. So I don't think I can rifle shuffle this, because this is such thick cardstock. A little bit. Actually not bad. I'm sure it's not going to hold up well under that, because it's quite cardboardy. But, you just shuffle them up. You can pull just a single. Here's a gorilla. You can pull a 3 card just as you would any of the energy of fish. And then if you pull the bottom one, you have the woodpecker. Such an industrious, creating the space and environment that he needs, right? A lot of animals will simply, kind of grab things as they will, but he's actually in there banging away. We have a lot of woodpeckers in the area. So you can pull the cards on that, but I just think they're beautiful because they're photographs. So that was in total to buy 4 decks. It was $8, less than 8. Well, it was probably a little over $8 with tax. And so for $8 for an 83 card deck, awesome sauce, and it celebrates the natural world. So that's why I wanted to bring it up here at the end too, because I was so excited about that find today at Books A Million. I'm sure they sell them on Amazon or something of that nature as well. But so there we have it. Just a kind of random intro into the Wildwoods. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I'm going to put up a quick video on starting with go through the major arcana. So tomorrow will be the Fool, and starting with the Wildwood, but talking about the Fool in general in terms of archetypes. What are the stories behind that energy of the Fool? So I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will see you soon.